That's what she said.
Bang on time. Right, welcome guys. It is obviously a bit later than our usual schedule because I've literally just come out of work, but we are here. Obviously Nick and Adam are joining us, and of course we've got to wish Nick a very happy birthday week.
Thank you.
So Nick will be running this night. This is his baby, and Adam obviously, because we are talking about scary stories, in particular, a scary stories, a tribute to terror, which is that book there, there.
We could just say we got it.
Which we don't have.
Which is
I'm cool. I got the signed one too. Hooray!
Oh,
yep, that makes. I hope that. Let's see, you're on.
Is yours?
Yeah, I got mine signed too as well.
Wow.
Yeah, they were. I thought they were really cool. That was like a very. That was such a nice touch to put with it. I thought that was very classy. Very classy.
I love that signed box. I've got a few of my own line. It just makes it more personal, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And let's not forget that the tribute to terror book is somewhat like the official but / unofficial fourth book to the original.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. To the original series.
Wow.
Always have them right at my ready.
Yep.
I've definitely got to buy them.
You know what? I might do it. I should have all 4 of them up just to give the similarity.
Nice.
Wow, yeah.
Very cool.
That's awesome. But yeah, everybody that's watching, I do apologize. I will be eating as we're going along. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just starving. I have been at work all day. But yeah, so Scary Stories, a tribute to terror. Obviously, this was written by, I've just forgotten his name. I do
Curtis Tuckfield.
Thank you. Do apologize. Which is, I think they are loosely based around true stories in a way, but they're more fictional than anything. However, like, inspiration comes from somewhere, as we know, like as we talked about with films and everything else. And this is something that is I think it's huge, really. These especially nowadays, these scary stories. And
well, they had the movie they made a couple of years back.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie that was based on, which I also have.
I was waiting for it. I was like, I see him reaching for something. He's got it. There we go.
That's the movie.
Harold, right on the cover there.
But yeah.
See, look who's got all their stuff ready to go.
And I got all books. It also inspired a documentary too called "Scary Stories," a documentary. You haven't seen this yet, I remember you said.
No, I have not. That's really awesome. I will see that. I'm going to make that my weekend.
Oh, here he is.
Say, we're going to welcome.
So now we're going to bring in to Kurt.
Hey guys, what's up?
Very warm welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
I saw you were talking about the documentary.
Yeah.
Shane, the illustrator for our book, did all the art in that documentary.
Phenomenal job.
Really? Wow.
Well, it started it. So it's a little proto compared to what's in the book, but it's still an interesting documentary.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much Kurt, for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on tonight. Obviously, Adam and Nick are very huge fans of yours. And I think we will be soon once I buy them. But yeah, like, tell us a bit about yourself, like your background, and like, what got you into writing these stories?
My background is kind of all over the place. I'm sure, like a lot of you guys, I just am into a lot of different things. I wouldn't say I'm just like primarily a writer or primarily into horror, but a lot of things. And one of them was, I don't know, at the moment that we made this book, that was what was needing to come out. But I've done a lot. I've done like a lot of albums and music, writing, very into, like Nick and we had a long conversation about tornadoes.
Oh yeah.
I was like sending him pictures of like tornadoes, like from old like VHS things. I was like, can you identify this one? He got everyone right. He definitely knows more about tornadoes than even I do. So, but yeah, a lot of different things. Like I'm sure you guys relate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, definitely.
But I also, from the book, I grew up in a house that was just like haunted, and I've had so many intense experiences that were that are like paranormal and mystical that it's been almost devastating to my life, honestly.
Wow.
It was very interesting, actually. Kurt, first of all, it's awesome to meet you, dude. Thank you for everything and being so supportive as you were for my narrations of the stories and everything.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for doing that. That was awesome.
Oh, dude, stop!
We got our copies right here.
Yeah, we got our copies here.
Oh, cool, that's
I
awesome.
love you.
Awesome to be here.
Yeah, we will be buying them soon. We will be.
It was extraordinarily interesting because you did something that the original Scary Stories book did, which was kind of explain and kind of give a breakdown after all the stories were done of the origins of the stories that Nick was holding up below, which was very interesting. And I know that in a few of them you had mentioned the same. Oh, see, there we go.
Yep, there we go.
He's ready.
All right. I don't have the 3 original ones. I gave them to my nieces. So
Oh, yeah.
when I have these ones, so but one of the places you had mentioned frequently was not just the house in Utah, I believe it was, correct?
Yeah.
But was also, it was funny, and it was most primarily in the clouds story was your fascination with tornadoes, which Nick had told me about on a prior conversation. So I thought that was a really cool aspect that maybe a lot of people kind of glazed over upon reading the initial books. You know, once the stories are done, it's like, oh, you know, you got all this explanation. It's like, you know, you're a kid, you don't want to read. But I thought it was phenomenal and very interesting and a very cool thing to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The original books were all folklore that Alvin Schwartz basically went to the library and retold all this folklore. Some of the things in the book, in the new book, are folklore, but I kind of went a different direction because it being like, you know, making it in 2020, I was like, well, what folklore am I going to tell that isn't, you know, like the original book had stories like The Hook and The Babysitter, which are, you know, those were like new to me, but they're like cliche now.
Yeah.
Right.
I had to make it more personal for me to want to like do it. And so in the end, instead of having all these references to where the folklore came from, it was kind of like talking about my own folklore. It was more personal. So I had to get like some of that stuff out. Just like any texture, anything hidden away, like inside myself from my childhood, is like I got to bring that out and just sort of twist it into kind of Twilight Zone.
Now, how did you, if I may, and I'm sorry, but I have like 1,000,001 questions to ask. I'll try to keep them nominal. How did you end up meeting up with Shane and getting him kind of into the same art styling as Stephen Gammell's, which is absolutely drippy and iconic, which is well replicated in the Scary Stories tribute book? And the second part of my question, and I promise I'll stop for a minute after this, is did you guys run into any issues with the art and the styles being very, very similar?
You mean to the original books? Like
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'll answer that part first. We made it, and we were just going to make 2 copies of the book, one for me and one for Shane. That was it. It was literally just for us. And then at a certain point, we were like, well, that's stupid. Like, why would we just make 2 copies? Like, other people are going to want to see this. So we contacted Peter Schwartz, the son of Alvin Schwartz, and like, and we were like, this is what we're doing. Like, what do you think about this? Like, what? Like, is this? You know, he was just like, just do it.
Wow. So
And-
just immediate approval on it?
Well, like, we don't own the copyrights to it. It was more like he gave us. He was like
His blessing, more or less.
Like a partial permission.
So it's kind of. I mean, the only thing that would be an issue is the font and the title. Everything else you can't really copyright. But I don't know. It was just like, who else is going to do this? There's no other way to make it happen.
I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was a breath of fresh air, man. You know.
The first question though about Shane, I've known Shane since like we met on like a scout trip, like a mutual trip to Jackson Hole when I was like 17, he was like 15, and we were like in 2 different like groups and doing this river rafting trip, and somewhere along the way we just like looked at each other and we were kind of magnetized to each other, and we've been best friends ever since. We have a lot of similar styles. He grew up with the books as well, so. And then at a point, it was right they were making. He drew he drew like a Gamel story, and I was like, I've been having dreams about. I really vivid dreams. I had these dreams where I'd go to the library, and there would be like, I would see the books, and there'd be like another book, or 2 more books, or like 4 and 5. So I picked it up and was like, in the dream, just like looking at all this art, and very aware that I was dreaming or astral projecting. And I was like, I wish I could. How do I take this with me out? I'm like, that's impossible. And then he drew that like right at that time. I was like, wait a minute. If I tell you things that I've seen and you draw them, because I can't. There's no way I could ever illustrate that. Then maybe we could like make a new book. And at the same time, he somehow got involved with that documentary, did all the art. So just sort of things aligned, and it just started happening. I would come up with a concept. At first, it started with just art. Like, I see this image. Like, can you draw it? And then that's where it started.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the paranormal experience that you said that obviously you've had, what is the most profound paranormal experience you've had?
The most profound? Well, the book is based on things happening in my childhood, like seeing ghosts and stuff. But that's not the most profound paranormal experiences I've had. Those were later when I started doing astral projection really, really hardcore about 14 and a half years ago. And that's all of my most profound stuff is related to that. Like, it got very dangerous, and there were, I almost died from basically demonic attacks, and I don't know how I'm still here. Like, I was this close to like losing it. So,
do you utilize binaural beats when you go into? Do you utilize binaural frequencies when you do the astral projection?
In the beginning, when I was really trying to do it hardcore, I did try that. But what happened was that it just started happening. And first, it was the most shocking thing I'd ever experienced. I've done it thousands of times, and it's still just shocking when it happens. But I went through a period where, you know, you would just leave your body. Like, I've had a lot of out of body and near death experiences, and you know, there's the idea that my consciousness is not really that tethered to my body as much as like a normal person. And when that started happening, all the paranormal experiences that you see peripherally through EVPs and stuff, I kind of started going there, and it was, at first it was so incredible, and I felt like Harry Potter or something. But after a while, it became so dangerous that I almost died, and it was absolutely terrifying. And I still do it, but I don't go to those places. I cut that off somehow. But everything you could possibly imagine experiencing that is supernatural, I've experienced it to a degree that I'm not really okay anymore. Like, I'm completely traumatized by it. But at the same time, so much of it is so wonderful that it kind of keeps me going. But yeah, that's all. Asking me that question, what's the number one, is just. I mean, I've seen saints up here, and I didn't know who they were, and I went to, you know, a priest and was like, "Who is this guy?" He had I described him perfectly, and he's like, "That's Father Damien. He had leprosy." Show me a picture. That's the guy. Like, and I've had so many experiences where I see something, I experience something, I don't know what it is, and I'll be like, "Who are you?" And they'll tell me, and I'll go look it up, and there'll be an exact painting of them that someone had painted that had also seen them, and I go, "Holy shit!" Like, so I've had a lot.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Oh,
But the stuff that's in the book is more simple. I couldn't put a lot of what happened later into the book because it's too wild. But the stuff like growing up, like as a kid, that our house started to just kind of turn on us. It started feeling worse and worse as it got closer to, as I got like 11, 12, 13 years old. And like you would see like orbs flying around or hear sounds. A lot of times it was just like feeling of just terror. But one day, and this is a story I put in the book. We were playing. I was 13 years old. It was in 1995, the summer of '95, and I was playing hide and go seek with some neighborhood friends. You know what I'm talking. You've read the book. That's a totally true story. And I was the seeker, and I counted down. Everyone hid, and I went downstairs into the basement. And I walked into this family room we had down there, which is like this long, very empty room. And there's only one way in and out, and that's behind me now. And you could see everything. In the middle of the room, there's this big poof pillow. And I walk in there, and there's this boy with a bowl cut that pops up and like looks right at me. And I look at him, and then he goes under and disappears. And I'm like, was that my friend Willie? Like, but he didn't look like him. And I go over and kick the poof pillow over, which is in the middle of the room. You couldn't leave that area without seeing someone. And there was no one there. And when I saw that, I was not the same after that. Like I was like, okay, that's it. There's ghosts. Like there's no explanation for what I just saw. Like
Great
Dragon. Yeah. Oh yeah, in the Higher and Higher, there's a Dragon Warrior reference. That's based on a true story also.
By putting all that down, does that help you with like your experiences? What's that?
Does it help me cope with it?
Yeah.
Yes. Very therapeutic. The book is kind of born out of necessity for that. It's been described as like overly sentimental, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. I take things that are very nostalgic and sentimental to me, and I twist them into something dark, so it's fun, but also it kind of. My childhood was awesome, and it was fun, but it was also really painful and dark at the same time. It was both. So the stories kind of have that adventurous Goonies aspect, but also are scary and dark and depressing at the same time. So yeah, each one of those brought that out. Like a lot of those were based on my old house, and when I wrote them and read them, I see it happening there. And once I got through that, then I was like, okay, I'm ready to let that little texture aspect of memory go. So
something that was ugly and painful for you,
yeah, I think that's where some of the best art comes from, probably.
Now, Nick, I'm sure you've got a million questions.
Hey, Nick.
So, when you made the tribute to Paranormal, like exactly like, how long did it really take?
Nick, I'm getting a lot of
yeah, I think
I can't understand anything that's going on right now. I'm sorry to be that.
Can you understand?
I just kind of wait.
Yeah, I'm. Did you ask me if it was how long it took?
Yeah, no, I'm saying, how long did it take to, get the whole book together when you had all the stories ready? Like, 'cause I'm sure it probably had to take a while, at least.
It took 4 years. It was
Wow.
Writing and editing the stories takes a while, but the art is doing the art and like trying to match it to Gamel is a big task.
Yeah, it's almost like as if you had to be gifted to make that type of art.
Yeah, we had to study the originals so much, and I mean we'd already been studying them our whole lives, but we had to really look closely and try to figure out what his rules were, because he didn't. If you want to draw Garfield or something, that's pretty simple. You can see exactly how to do it, but with Gamel, his stuff is so abstract. It's like it's very professional. It looks like a master who's also like a little kid. drawing it, and he uses all these things like if you look at like I don't know, the something was wrong from Moore.
Oh, that was a good one.
Like let's see what we got here. So for example, this right here.
Oh yeah.
At the bottom of see the phone booth.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
See those like lines, like kind of
Like tendrils.
Yeah.
see those lines? There's no explanation for what those are or what they're doing there. It's just weird. The books are filled with stuff like that. So how do you figure out how that works or what to do and when to do it? You just had to like geek out on like figuring out that kind of stuff. And I think we got pretty close. It's not perfect, but I think it's better than anything I've seen.
I'm inclined to agree. I'm trying to find one. This was a really good one.
Oh yeah. That's one of the early ones.
Oh yeah.
That really kind of encompasses the whole Gamma-esque art style.
Yeah, he doesn't usually use outlines. Instead, he uses shading. It's all about contrast of sort of seeing a fuzzy, dark shape with contrast. Your imagination figures out what it is, and that's why it's scary. Sometimes it will go from sharp to very blurry. Like there'll be like a face that's sharp, and then the arm will be blurry and fuzzy, and it'll have things coming on it. Those kind of rules took us a long time to figure out, and each one, Shane would draw it, and he's like, "What do you think of this?" I'm like, "That's not right. You have to change this." So each one of the images in there, he had to do like 5 to 20 times.
Wow, that's incredible. I'll just quickly drop Scaredy Cat's question on, because after we were talking about astral projection. He says, "Has anyone seen Encounters of the Fifth Kind about higher consciousness and astral projection?"
I saw that like on Netflix the other day, and I was like, "What is that?" But no, I haven't seen it. I didn't know it was about that. So,
I haven't seen it.
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I do know about it.
if you want to see a film or some films that are very, very accurate to demonic attacks in astral projection, Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 3. Here's a funny story. During the whole time that I was getting attacked, which was from 2007 to 2012, I had never seen those films. And I didn't actually know what they were. Somehow I missed out on what that was about, like a demon attacking you in a dream. When I saw those movies right after that was done, and it blew my mind. I was like, this is exactly what it's like, only in real life it's scarier. There's more of them, but they can't just kill you instantly. It's just like that, but instead of just stabbing you and killing you instantly, they wear you down over years. They torture you, they make you go crazy. I've been possessed 3 times. That's not fun. I don't know if you guys have ever been possessed. That's not fun.
I've been
Not yet. But I've had things attached to me though.
I've had girlfriends. That's close, right?
Yes. Anyone who does ghost hunting and goes to places where there's known demons, I would highly advise caution, because that can spiral into something that you can't even imagine. Everything in Nightmare on Elm Street, where she's eating coffee, she's trying to stay awake, setting an alarm for every 20 minutes. I did all of that before I saw those movies.
Oof.
I stayed awake for 9.5. It was not good.
No.
So,
That's crazy.
I'll quickly say Matt had a question until we lose it on the chat. He says, "What's everyone's favourite story out of the book?"
Out of which one?
Attributed to
Yeah.
Or
Which book, Matt? And we'll get back to you, mate, if you tell us which book. But yeah, on that point that you said there, Kurt, about being careful about places of demons, definitely after the we're still quite fresh into paranormal investigating world, but well, I would strongly highlight what you said about being careful, because I used to be a skeptic and I didn't believe anything, but after the experiences I've had, I haven't been projecting of it or anything like that, but these things are real and they can be deadly, and it does happen. So either we use, I always wear obsidian pendants, things like this, crystals and stuff like that, or saging. I would definitely say if anybody's looking into being an investigator or going to like demonic entities or even just negative entities, you don't know, just take precautions because it can have severe effects on your life, as you said.
Yeah, it's funny being a skeptic, how fast that can change. Like like when I saw the kid in my basement, like that's it. There's no going back. Believing in something like demons, when you're literally having like Nightmare on Elm Street happen to you, and you're almost dead, you're like, okay, I can't be a skeptic anymore. Like you have to face that. Like,
Yeah.
So what about Hefty and Nick? What were your favorite stories from Trivia Fair? Because everyone gives me a totally different answer to this.
All the tribute.
Well, wow, from your book, Kurt, I'm probably going to have to. That's a tough. There were a lot of really, really good ones.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go with the final one.
Geologist?
It's hold on. It's the one about the geologist, and it's just very, very Lovecraftian. I'm a huge Lovecraft fan. So that was absolutely, I thought, a great. Not only, I mean, they were all great stories, but that one particularly stuck out to me, which I thought was a fantastic story and a hell of a way to end the book. Like, you leave them wanting more. As far as the original one, good Lord, I don't know.
Well, they're all good too.
Yeah, there's so many. I remember the one I think that stuck out to me the most, probably out of all the original Scary Stories books, was the one about the woman and her mother who go to a hotel, and the doctor takes a look at the woman and sends her all around God's green earth trying to get the medicine for her.
Well, maybe you remember.
Yeah, maybe you remember. Yes. So those are probably going to be my favorite too, out of your wonderful book, Kurt. And Kurt, thank you for being supportive on my channel as well. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
Actually was, man. Thank you.
It was awesome hearing different people read the stories. But that's an interesting answer, Geology. No, go ahead, Nick.
So for my favorite story, I mean, again, I love every single one of them. It's all fantastic and terrifying. But one of my particular favorite ones is actually, well, two of them. Of course, obviously, the Whirling Service. I love the artwork you guys did with that represent that tornado photograph. So here, you guys haven't seen it.
You have seen that and know exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize that photograph immediately.
He knows like a photograph.
Now, what I'm actually going to do, let me get the actual picture up, because I know not too many people really see the photograph very well. That is based off of
That's pretty cool. Look at that.
I'll put it on my green. I'll put it on the green screen for the back one.
Yeah, we need a green screen.
Yeah, you asked so many people these questions about what their favorite story was, and I was expecting something consistent, and every single person is given a different answer. People will be like you said, Geology. Someone else was like, my least favorite story was Geology.
Because they got no taste.
Just shows that fear is all about perspective.
I love portmanteaus. I'm a sucker for a good portmanteau.
All right, so I got to turn so you guys can see us. This is the actual photograph. This is that. For those who don't know, this is actually the very first photograph of a tornado ever taken back in Howard, South Dakota in 1884.
Which is pretty amazing that is the first photograph, considering how awesome it is. It's like got like two suction vortices coming out of the side symmetrically. What is that about?
Yeah, it's like multiple vortices, and I'm going to show that picture again. You can pretty much see the resemblance in it.
Yeah, but above it, it actually does look like there's kind of faces in the clouds. 3 of them.
It kind of does. Yeah, that's what's really cool.
So that's where I got that idea. And I just had to have something with storms in it. Like, I mean, that's such a great texture. Like, storms make things like creepier.
Yeah, like you see it a lot with horror films and different horror stories. Exactly, there's always thunderstorms associated with them. But one of my other stories that I really liked, I found it kind of one of the most unsettling, was Venetian Blinds, which to me that was kind of like a almost modern, but at the same time it's kind of like a throwback take on the classic babysitter story. I can't find it. And I just loved how, there was just that sense of helplessness with those kids in that story. So those were, I love the entire book. I mean, I want to say those are probably the best, but honestly, for my, in total honesty, I think they're all great. As for the original trilogy, I'm going to have to go with, I love them all, but I think I'm going to have to go with one of the most notorious, which is obviously on the cover, is The Haunted House. This was the one that scared me the most.
Was it more the story or the illustration that got you?
The illustration.
I mean, and it's funny. I was, if you met me 10 years ago, I would have said, there's no way I'm ever buying this book. It's just too damn scary. I mean, and already I was into horror films and paranormal stuff. It's like the scary stories told you, like the black sheep of the family, if you will. And it wasn't until I was about 17 years old that I finally had the dare of finally buying the book. And this was back when we used to have, I'm sure you remember, Borders, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This was actually the last thing I ever got from Borders. I got it around the Halloween season. Of course, if you see it closer, it actually is kind of partially falling apart page. But I read, ever since I bought it, I've been reading this along with, of course, this book and other TV books every October Halloween season.
Well, it sure spiraled because you seem to have like every book imaginable that is inspired by scary stories. I saw your on a big like table and stuff. Yeah, you got everything.
Tales from Valley View Cemetery. We got also Nightmare Soup and from the book. Let's see what else.
I didn't actually know that all those books existed when we were making these books. This book. I didn't know there were other people that had tried to do stuff like that.
See, that's the thing. I mean, Tales from Valley View Cemetery, which I just showed, was actually the first one that was made. That was made back in 2015. Then Nightmare Soup came out a year later. So, and of course, at that time, because that was, before your book came out, they said that this was like supposed to be the kind of somewhat fourth book. But then all of a sudden, there's all these other companies that start making these books that have similar stories and illustrations to them.
Did any of you guys see the new official HarperCollins book, Don't Turn Out the Lights?
No.
Hang on 1 second. Hang on.
Nick's got it. He's got everything, yeah.
Yep. There we go. Oh, wait, you can't see it.
It's a ghost book.
They said they were going to do that. Like, I heard about it after we did our book, and I was like, oh no, it's going to come out at the same time, and it's like, and then I saw the cover, and I was like, wait a minute, the cover's green. Like, after this, why would you make a green cover?
I much prefer the black and white. I think it kind of harkens back to like the older stuff, and it's a lot creepier when there's no vibrant colors or what have you. I think it translates better.
Our book is a bit different in that we wanted to make it exactly like the original books. Like, if you look at the original like 3 and you start turning the pages along with tribute, like everything's the same. The format, the same, the paper, even
down to the font. It's phenomenal. It's very every little detail was taken care of. It was what a great book.
Thanks. Yeah,
I'm not paid to say this.
I like that.
I'm just going to jump in 2 seconds, guys. Just want to do a quick shout out for a lad I work with. He's in the comments there. It's Old AS Reviewers. He's literally just started his YouTube channel. Does reviews on film, all that stuff. Has a bit of a laugh as well. I would say it's definitely adults only. If you want to watch it, don't let your kids watch it.
Send me his information. I'll sub to his channel. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I will put his link into the description below after the thing tonight. But please support him. Check out. He just started it up. Absolutely hilarious. You'll love it, guys. And also, Nick, are you having bad weather, mate? Because I think people are struggling to hear your camera at the moment.
Yeah, it's a little.
Yeah, there's still a bit of a sound issue. What was that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think someone's just getting some bad weather somewhere.
Yeah, it's well, a little bit not as loud as what it was before, but you can hear some of the feedback.
Yeah, cool. No worries. We'll still crack on with it. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Sorry.
There's one other book here I forgot to share too, by the way. In addition to the trilogy and the tribute, was not exactly the same illustrations, but let's not also forget this book too. In a dark, dark room.
You know that one as well.
People are constantly messaging me or referencing Green Ribbon.
Green Ribbon, yeah.
They're like, oh, I love scary stories. My favorite's the Green Ribbon, and I'm like, actually, that was from a different book.
That wasn't me, but thanks.
But it's so many people that remember that one.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw in fact, the documentary, they had a couple deleted scenes. And one of those scenes was they cut the scene where they talk about the Green Ribbon, which was the only story they talked about in this book. And, you know, I have to admit, even though this is actually a children's book, it's still pretty graphic, you know, with someone's head falling off in it.
I honestly forgot all about that book until you just held it up, and I was like, oh my God, I remember that book.
Yep, we had it in school. We had the original trilogy and that book.
In a dark, dark room in like a dark, dark house, right? And it just keeps going on like that. And one of those, oh my God. Okay.
I would say that, like, because everyone's like saying that everyone's always saying that there's never a consistent favourite story. I think that just shows how good of a book it is, because nobody can literally just pick, oh, there's one favourite.
That's an awesome point. That's an awesome point.
Good book. Like, people can't put down because they like them all. Yeah. Yeah. It links so many different people, like I said, with people's perception of fear. Everyone's different, but we've covered the vast variety of it and hit every aspect. It appeals to everybody. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting to see like how people respond to different like kinds of like psychological ideas. So do you guys a lot of people have asked, they've said like, oh, I can't wait to get this book and like read it to my 4-year-old. Do you guys think that the original books or like this Tribute to Terror, you think that they were the sort of conservative moral majority was somewhat right and that they were maybe a little bit too messed up?
I think that are we talking about yours or the original ones?
Well, let's say the original ones. I'd say mine is maybe a little bit darker psychologically, but people I
think there's a certain niche of kids that are into that, and like me being one of them, I think they were exactly, if anything, for what I was into at the time, they were like a little tame when I was a kid, but still conveyed, just because I had a very warped upbringing, apparently. But they were fantastic. I think that if I had kids, I would absolutely read the originals and your book to them. I think it's why are you reading if it's not going to scare you? If it's not dark and it doesn't really have that visceral, primal punch in the gut, you know, why bother?
What age do you think this is appropriate for? Like, what age and up?
So what I would say is
Scar 'em early. Scar 'em early.
I mean,
I would say honestly, honestly, all joking aside, I would probably say 6 and up.
yeah,
6 and up because I mean,
the original
you turn on the news, they're scary.
for ages 8 and up. But honestly, because we have these that are still back in my elementary school days, so that means that if they were available for kids, I were if they're young as 6. So I probably would give that the same age limit too, 6 and up.
yeah, they never. Those books never traumatized me, but on the other hand, I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time when I was 12, and it messed me up for like 4 or 5 years. Like I was, I was like looking over my shoulder to see if Leatherface was coming out at me. Like, I know that it actually certain things can mess kids up because it happened to me with that movie. Like,
absolutely. I remember when I was a kid, I watched Haunted Honeymoon with Gene Wilder, and for whatever reason, scared the bejesus out of me. Like, I was petrified.
Were you like? How old were you?
How old am I? I'm 42. At the time, I was, God, I can't even remember. This was probably like 1988.
Yeah, like that's funny how like just it does that. Like, I remember my cousin. We were watching the Thriller music video, the Michael Jackson Thriller music video.
That's a scary movie, man. Whoa.
When Michael Jackson transformed, my cousin crapped his pants.
I still do.
He just went, oh! It's like, and I was like, what? That's scary, but damn. So
I think that was a confluence of awesome things. That was like John Landis and some amazing Rick Baker makeup. It's like, come on, man. Vincent Price rapping. Come on now.
Yeah, really.
That's a shut up and take my money.
I think I was like 12, 13 when I was watching Buffy Vampire Slayer, and obviously that was quite risky.
But I think that, like kids nowadays, though, I think they've become so numb to these things because it's around them so much now. It's not like when a lot of us were younger, like when I was younger, like these kind of things like these kind of games didn't exist. But nowadays,
the game's crazy now.
Like full games, it's extremely graphic. It's for a child, and it's like I think they're just today's society. Kids are a lot more numb.
And the 3D, which I think put into the actual game, even more so.
That's what I've been wondering is like, are kids is totally different now? Like my friends' kids, they played, but they're like talking like 11, 12 years old. They played like Outlast. I don't know if you've ever.
I hate that game.
They're like Outlast. No, that's not scary. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like a professional survival horror player. That game scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, I hate it because I can't fight anything. Yeah, that's a hide and stealth thing. I'm like, no.
That's it.
And they saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they're like, no, it's scary. It's like,
I gotta ask.
are you guys lying? Like,
Have you played Outlast 2 yet? Have you guys played the second one?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I think that one scared me even more than the first time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Put it this way.
yeah, it's just
There's some really intense scenes, but there's also some scenes that are just messed up. It's probably way worse than the first one. If the first one was bad, the second one takes like one step further.
I mean, it had a good tricky ending, right? But it was just...
The ending, oh my god, yeah. I can't say what happened, but that was really messed up. Actually, kind of sad too.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up playing maybe Spyro and stuff. I mean, that sounds scary.
Remember you had to jump twice.
Yeah.
Get there.
I used to be afraid of those rats or something chase you. That used to scare me.
See, I actually grew up with. See, I remember back in the late '90s, early 2000s. For me, I actually grew up with the N64, of course, with Castlevania 64. You guys remember that one, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I still have that. In fact, I still have that game. So I play it every now and then. So that was another inspiration for me. But what got me, it's a lot of the horror and paranormal stuff.
I'm gonna go with Eternal Darkness for GameCube. Still own it.
dude, that's like the only survival horror game that I haven't played.
Castlevania?
No, Eternal Darkness.
Oh,
Oh,
dude, do yourself a favor, sir. If you can find it on the cheap, bro.
You guys, have you guys played any? You guys play like Resident Evil 7 in VR?
And not in VR, but I played RE7.
You want to play a scary game that in VR, which the first like third is like Outlast in VR.
No, thank you.
That's like a next level experience.
See, I just got started with Resident Evil with all these games. It wasn't up until recently.
I mean, you're supposed to put the screen, the darkness stuff, so you can bring it up and down. You're supposed to make it really dark as well to make it even more scarier and harder.
Oh, the gamma, bringing up the gamma levels and stuff. I usually make mine brighter so I can see what the hell I'm doing. But there's a lot of times where I'm like, I kind of don't want to see, but I might miss something, and I'm old, so it's like, kind of play that card. Are you on Xbox or PlayStation?
Right now, I'm doing PlayStation 4.
Nobody's perfect. It's okay.
I'm usually a few years behind in. Like I was always kind of old school, and so I was always a few years behind. And then I got a PS4, and I got Resident Evil 7. There you go. And I started.
I have that too. Nice.
I started playing it, and I was like, "Wait a minute, this game's also in VR." I was reading about it. I was like, "I gotta get VR." And so for the last like 8 months, it's just been VR madness here. It's kind of scary, honestly. When
cool.
You get into VR because you're like, "Where is this gonna go? Is this gonna be? Is it gonna turn into like WALL-E, like that movie WALL-E,
or like Rant by Chuck Palahniuk, where you get the chips and you plug into the back of your head? Since nobody's read that, read that book.
Yeah, like what's gonna happen? It's kind of some of those games. Like I'm playing Walking Dead on VR, and every time you put it on, it's kind of. I mean, I've been doing this for like 8 months, and it's every time you put it on, it's like kind of disturbing because it's a lot, honestly, like Astral Projection, where you're just like, like in the Matrix when they say, "This isn't real," and this is what is. You have that moment like every time. It's kind of disturbing. I'm kind of, it was like my dream to see stuff like that as a kid, but now that it's happening, I'm like, I feel a little old.
you never
We're actually in the future. Probably like a big reason why people like us would make a book like this. I think a lot of us are probably pretty nostalgic, and we're like, man, I wish we could go back to that simpler time. This stuff is cool, but I wish we could go back to that simpler time when we didn't actually have to deal with
stuff
all day.
I say that all
like you fought somebody at school. Like chances are, you fought the fight, you lost, you won. Big deal. You go home. You care. Nobody called the cops. Like chances are you ended up becoming friends with the kid. Or not, or just later in life. Maybe that's just me.
What's interesting, by the way, is that when we mentioned about how these kids today that they're always on their nowadays they're always on their phones. They're looking either on their phones or laptops and stuff. It's somewhat, kind of sad, at least for my part, because, like books like such as these, we used to read them through actual books. We didn't have phones in our hands. Because now you can download them through, apps. You can read them on your phone. I still prefer, for me, I still prefer to do it in the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, we prefer that people buy the book rather than the Kindle. I kind of discourage the Kindle because it's like, well, that's not really the same.
Yeah, I used to have a Kindle for a bit. I had one, and I couldn't get on with it. And I think I ended up binning it in the end, and I went back to books. You can't beat normal
nothing
books.
better than having a book in your hands and be able to flip pages.
I work 5 days a week. I read every day for the past year in my car for at least an hour, and I get to work early so I can read in my car. I read a book in my car every 5 days a week for the past year, just because I think it's an absolute.
Yeah.
Well, first I have so many books, and I'm like, all right, I got to get in on these. But second of all, I'm like, what a great, with bookstores going the way of the dinosaur, and Kirk kind of actually answered a question I had with physical versus digital media. With his answer, But like, I think that reading is something everybody should do, and I think it has really fallen out of place. But I'm damn it, I'm making a point to read, and I think everybody should.
I think people today have access to unlimited information.
Back in my day,
it ranges from basically junk food information to something really like going to be good for you.
Yeah.
If you take YouTube, there's all these, or like TikTok. That's actually like junk food. You're just watching. It's just like constantly keeping you stimulated, but you never really learn anything.
there's no substance. It's all filler. It's all empty calories, empty digital calories.
Yep. I'm worried about what it's doing to like everyone's attention span.
See, that's like when I look at, again, when it comes to like the books and stuff, like your book, for example, when you mentioned about the Kindle pack, although I think I actually did get the Kindle pack, but still, I've always been reading the book, and I prefer reading it through the actual books themselves, because if you're reading it through your phone, you're not really experiencing the terror or intensity that these books should be giving off. If you actually have the book, they give you that creepy energy. And as you know, I always like listening to the audio book along with the story. It makes them even more unsettling.
Yeah, we did do an audio book too, and you did some too. There's a few.
Adam?
Yeah.
That's all I met you. So
yeah, this is actually all your fault, Kurt. So,
if you read,
so thank you. I made some really cool friends out of this.
How I actually met Drew was because I heard some of the samples of the audio book that you guys made.
The AJ Dana one?
Yep.
Yeah, the other one, AJ Dana, yeah. And at one point I decided just to see if there were any more audio books available. And of course, this was before I got the audio book. And then I came across, this channel called HefTV, and I decided, let's take a look at this. And I actually enjoyed his version. Not better. I still like the original audio book, I promise you. But, it was actually quite impressive on how he narrated them. And it was right around the same time that, it was actually right around the same time that I was starting to do my own audiobook. So I decided to get a hold of Adam and said, originally I remember him saying, I asked him, was he going to do any more? But that's I found out he told me that he was only allowed to do a limited amount. And I said, well, if you're finished with those, here's these other tribute books out there that don't have audio books. And that's when I asked if there was some, I got in touch with him, and that's when I was able to ask if he wanted to work with me on some other audio books for some of these other tribute books that don't have them.
I wanted to thank Kurt. Actually, that's one of the things I wanted to say to you is you were always super cool about it. You were never like, hey, dude, stop reading my stuff. You were always just like, hey, please don't read all of them because we have our own audiobook. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Just please don't flag any of my videos. I appreciate you. First of all, thank you for giving me the material to read. It's phenomenal. But dude, like Tom, Amy, Nick, I made some great friends out of this, which you can't even put a price tag on. And just real quick, my buddy Bobo is watching, who I haven't seen in like a long time. So shout out to Bappa. I love him. And Rob Werther said Scary Stories was his tablet when he was a kid, which I think is a very cool statement. But thank you, Kurt, for you did a wonderful service, sir.
I mean, you write stories, and it was just like something coming from my, like a personal place coming from my head, and then suddenly you have people like AJ Dana who are like, can I like read these and you can edit them, and then you hear, and like and there's two other people who have read the stories, and start to hear.
Who's your favorite?
Dude.
Sorry, you got to answer. Gun to the head. Who's your favorite?
I'm gonna be totally honest. They are all sort of just like complementary to each other.
I'm only teasing, brother.
They to hear something that was just kind of personal in your head, like a character become animated, as if you wrote something and someone animated it and gave it a voice. That was really cool. I've never experienced anything like that. So anytime anyone does it, it's just like exciting.
It is.
I never thought of it from that perspective, where you create something and it makes such an impact on somebody that they want to not only like replicate it, but put their own spin to it.
Yeah, it came alive.
That's cool.
AJ actually contacted us and was like, "Can I help out doing anything?" He's like, "I'm a professional voice actor. Can I like read the stories?" Like, oh, okay. He's like, "I'll do it for free," which is a big thing because it turns out he is a professional voice actor.
I call dibs on the second book. I'll do it for free. Boom.
that's something we're working on too. But when
you heard it here,
then
baby.
Then he sent us. He sent me everything. He sent me like all these audio files, and he would read a part like 50 times in a row in 50 different ways, and I'd have to edit it. And it was like it was such an amazing experience. It was a pain in the ass. It took over 100 hours.
Wow, really?
To just hear like, you know, you could put on headphones and all of a sudden the characters are like alive.
Yeah.
Sort of like audiobook radio play format. That was really cool.
Yeah.
And he narrated them was just incredible. I mean, I've never heard of someone who really actually kind of like someone who brought those characters to life.
Yeah, it was. At first, we were going to do it more like the original audiobooks, but those were a little too, I don't know, a little juvenile for the kind of stories we were telling, and we went with a little bit different direction to make it. That was to make it work, but.
Well, you know, there's actually something, Kurt. Of course, obviously, I can't have it available online. But you know, I remember a few months ago after I purchased a copy of your book. I think I asked on, your page, if you guys there, because when I heard the audiobook, that there wasn't really a lot of sound effects and music to it. Well, because I have a copy of it, and again, I'm going to give it to personal use, but I actually decided to re-edit the stories and add sound effects and music to them myself. So in case you're interested, I can actually send you a copy of all of it.
Hell yes, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, literally, they are scary as hell. Well, I know it.
I was gonna do it, but by the end of editing, I mean, take a story like Memento Mori, which is pretty long for a short.
That was so good. That was so good.
I'm doing every line 50 times, and then you have to pick and put it together. By the end, I was like so exhausted by the process, and I was like, and that was kind of it. And so, plus I wasn't sure if many people would really listen to the audiobook. So yes, I would definitely like to hear that.
Yeah, I have the whole list. The only one I did not edit was the story Bleeding Mud, and that was because I just couldn't find a good piece of music that could just fit with the story. So that's the only one that I left unedited. And then, of course, I cut some of the stories. So, keeping up with the music and sound effects. So, yeah, I'll send you the whole way.
Actually, speaking of Bleeding Nuts, Kurt, was there kind of like a teaser in there at the end where you were talking about how it mentions several other very weirdly named things? Like, I think one of them is like Lady's Tongue or something like that the guy is purveying. And you're like, if something that almost alludes to if there's enough interest, there will be more of these mentioned in the future.
You guys, I'll tell you the actual source of that, where all that comes from. And it's I don't tell people this because it's just not a lot of the things that have happened to me. You're just like too wild that I don't tell people. It's just like I don't want you to think I'm crazy. This goes back to Astral Projection. In the peak of Astral Projection, when it was really scary, you would leave your body, and just like any other experience like this, I can't really prove it to you, but I will tell you for a fact that this happened. This is a real thing. I was able to go into, basically, you could call it the land of the dead, the spirit world, which turns out is a very scary place. There are a bunch of insane people running around who, there's a lot of questions about what's going on there, but I was at this place that was like a carnival, and when there's someone around, when you are astral projecting and there's someone who is like a real person and not just some dream figure, you will know it pretty quickly. You'll never forget it because they have a presence. There's something about them that is very different than anything you can imagine. And it's something you basically just have to experience for yourself. I could talk about as much as I want, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Like,
Because everyone's experience as well, they'd be different to yours. So.
Yeah.
So in this place, there's when I would go there, I would just look around and try to like study everything possible, ask as many questions, and just, what is going on here? This is really wild. There was a food stand there that had a lot of that world I would describe as a mishmash of different cultures. Like, imagine if everyone died and they say they went to another kind of Earth, another kind of place where they were all together. They wouldn't necessarily be divided by nations. I mean, they might just like end up with like Muslims and Hindus and Christians and atheists and people from Russia and people from Japan. Like who knows? That's kind of an impression I got. It was kind of a Blade Runner-esque type thing.
Nice.
There, they had a menu there that had food, and I was studying this so carefully. This menu, all of those, the names in that are from that menu. And I memorized it. I just memorized it, and I went and asked people about this weird food they were eating, and it was a creepy place. Like it makes me anxious just thinking about it. But I came back and I wrote them all down as fast as I could.
That's awesome.
Those are that's what that story is about. Is about a guy from another dimension who may be like somehow bringing something from his culture there, but it can't really exist for very long because it's not compatible with that dimension. Mm-hmm. And all everything listed in there, the Torvis Chooser and the Malif and Prandal and stuff.
Yeah.
Those are all from that list. And then I found out like things like Tibbs. A lot of the words I'd never heard of ladyfingers or Tibbs. Those are actually real food.
Yeah, ladyfingers.
Like Tibbs are like the main like Ethiopian dish. So it was, I don't know, it's interesting. That's where that comes from.
That's awesome.
Wow.
It's the idea is like maybe you'll die and like you'll go there and find out that Bleeding Nugs was always a real thing, and I'd be like, I got you. It'd be like a slow burn, like Easter egg. Really mystical one.
Easter egg.
Nice. I had to put it in there.
Definitely. Right, unfortunately, we are coming towards the end.
Can I just ask one more question, please?
Yeah, then I'll shout out for
Kurt, is there going to be another book?
I was going to ask.
Oh no!
So
I'm sorry, Amy.
Don't worry.
Oh man, I apologize. I'm sorry. I've overstepped my bounds.
Ask me the question, Amy.
No, it's fine. I was gonna say, are you gonna do another book? And if so, I'd be really interested in doing some illustrations for you. That's what I'm in right now.
So I have I've written about 10 stories that are. I'm kind of going a little bit more advanced in the writing. It'll be a spectrum of like totally Alvin Schwartz and totally me, like depending on the story. I kind of did that with Tribute of Terror because his style is like elementary school and kind of is a little awkward in a weird way. So there's that, and some of them are like way longer. So I do have all the text for a book as big as any of the originals. Mm-hmm. The issue is the illustrations. I'm working with Shane on it, but Shane is like just bogged down with all this stuff, and it's very like draining for him to make an illustration. So yes, I'm trying to get it illustrated right now. The first stories are being edited right now. Mm-hmm. So I can't really say when it will happen, but I got a really great. Probably my favorite story I ever did. I just finished, called The Stairs, and that will be in there.
Ooh, that's already.
I can't say when it's going to happen, but I'm working on trying to get it.
I will buy it.
Send me some of your illustrations.
Sorry, say it again.
You said you do illustrations too?
Well, I don't necessarily create illustrations. I create a lot of artwork based on gore and horror and
Very horror-based.
yeah, spooky. So illustrations will be cool.
Yeah.
The issues with this one is it has to be done like a very specific way, and it would be hard to just for different people to do it because you have to basically train for a long time to figure out how to even texture it right. It's I'm trying to figure out how to finish it however I can. But yes, there'll be something at some point.
Wow, that's incredible.
Awesome.
I'm going to do quickly a shout for another birthday. My very good pal, Scaredy Cat Paranormal Investigations. It was his birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, mate.
Happy birthday, man.
Happy
He
birthday.
did a investigation at Letchworth Village, and you go to his Instagram, you will see some of the videos from there. Some of the evidence he's got is incredible. I've never seen some of the things that he got there. Absolutely incredible. And also he just said that he was cleaning his bag and his bag got knocked off or something. And what did he say? He's cleaning his equipment bag and something pushed off the chair, and there's no way it could have just fallen off the boat. He says, "Did I bring anything home? I hope you didn't, but please, as we said earlier, Kurt said earlier, make sure you take him infected measures. We don't want anything to happen to you, buddy." I will be talking with Scaredy Sunday night. It won't be tomorrow night because I'm doing a night shift tomorrow night, so unfortunately I'm not going to be here. But Sunday night,
My hat's off to you, sir, for the night shift.
thank you very much.
Not for me.
I did that.
But yeah, we always.
You guys some EVPs too, because I have some too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. We always finish off the thing with a game. Now, this is a game called a Shot in the Dark. It's just random questions. Nobody knows the answers unless you look at it. General trivia. It's just general trivia questions. Have a laugh, have a guess, see what you get.
Have a go as well. Comment.
But before we do that, obviously, Kurt, thank you very much for coming on the show. Absolutely.
You can get the book at scarystoriestribute.com, just to throw that out there.
Yes, yeah. Please.
And yeah, I'll get your information at the end to put into the description for you.
Yeah, we'll put the links in the description for your website and that. Guys, please go buy the books. I'm certainly going to be. I will be definitely. They're the books
Alright, so turn them off.
Are you still signing them, Kurt, or no? When they get
We weren't for a bit because Shane and I live in different cities, but then
Right.
it turns out people actually want our signature. Who would want my signature? Why would people care? But it turns out people do. So he's been coming, and we have been doing them all.
super cool? I thought that was super classy, dude.
Yeah. I didn't know we were going to get signatures, so when I got your copy and I saw the signature, I thought, oh, man, this is a bonus.
Nope, sorry, bud.
Adam, buddy,
Shot in the dark.
have you got anything to add, mate? Anything going on in the next week for you?
Check us out every Friday on this fantastic channel where we talk about something awesome and different every week. And I'm joined by my good friends Tom and Amy and Nick and somebody else.
So you're
Yeah, I'm still getting used to this. Yeah, these guys there. I do have friends over there. They're just not real.
Yeah, as for me, I'm still working on the audiobook for. I got all the books right here. I got, and Kurt, I'm sure you probably know about this book. Just had it a second ago. See, I got all these books hanging out. Now I can't even find what I'm looking for. Okay, well, I can't find it, but I'll still say it anyway. I'm still doing audio. I'm still going to be releasing the audio books for Cold New American Folklore.
Yeah, I saw that. I'll have to check that out soon.
Yeah, it's my first real audiobook series. And long story short, I actually contacted the group that made them. Cold from Valley Cemetery. At the Cemetery Gates Volume 1 and 2 and What Waits in the Dark, I asked, were you guys going to make any audio? And they said no. I said, well, would there be any chance I'd be able to do it? Of course, only doing it for fun, not planned. So, and they gave me their blessing for it, and now I basically have the full right Yeah, and I also now have the full rights to the Nightmare Suit books too with Adam. Yeah, Adam's actually going to be working on that.
That's sweet.
This is true. These are all true things.
So then we'll finish on the game. We'll pick a couple of questions.
I picked a random one.
You picked a random one, did you?
Asking specific people, or are we just blurting stuff out?
6%.
Yeah, just blurt it out. Whatever you think the answer is, just go for it. If they're rubbish questions, Amy thinks it, not me. So the first one is: in which room of the house do most injuries occur?
Bedroom.
Kitchen.
Bathroom.
Yeah,
Kitchen.
definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna go kitchen. Being next year, definitely kitchen.
I'm going bedroom.
You go in bedroom. Yeah, you would, wouldn't you? It is. What did you say, Adam?
Kitchen. Oh, he said bathroom.
Bathroom. Yeah, you're bang on, mate. The bathroom.
It was the bathroom.
The most
Yep,
common
me
thing
too.
is tripping whilst getting in and out of the shower or bath. That's the most
Where was
common
it?
thing.
Someone in the shower.
Oh, yeah.
Kitchen. Sorry, guys.
Kitchen. Yeah. In the UK, what is the average amount spent per year on raising a child aged between 1 and 4 years old?
1 and 4 years old?
Wow.
Now, in the UK, we're about half your dollar.
I thought it was.
I got to do math. Hold on.
I thought it was like. I thought a pound was like $1.75 or something.
Oh, yeah, isn't it?
I think it's more.
Just say it in dollars.
Okay.
20 quid. I don't know British money.
A year.
I want to say like
Per year.
Per year.
maybe like
Per year.
20 grand. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 50. I'm really.
Between what?
Between 1 and 4 years old. It's got to be a shit ton, isn't it?
It's probably more than I'd say more than that. Yeah.
How's it work,
It's
though? Our yearly wage is about what? 30 grand is about a year's wage.
30 grand?
More than that.
maybe go 15.
15.
I was wrong. It's 70. It's about 75 cents to $1. Okay. So it was like what? How much was it?
I'll tell you in a second. Joe, 50. We'll see where we're at. It's 15.
That's like $20,000.
No.
It's £15,806.
That's what happens to a teacher.
Okay.
That was my next guess.
So like $10,000. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, it is very close.
You're close with your answer.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. You're sweet.
I'll finish on one more then. It's a film one. So, true or false? All of the desert scenes in the film The Mummy were filmed in Europe's largest quarry in Slough in England.
I'm going to go with true on that one.
I'm
The original Mummy?
Yeah, I think. I'm going to have to say true.
I'm going to go true on that one.
Such a specific question, and I'm gonna have to say true too.
Yeah.
I'll go false then. We did this last time. We all went together and then it was wrong.
Yeah, that's true. I'll go true. That'll be true, surely.
I'll go false.
Joe says true. Rob says false. It is false.
Oh, Tui! Oh. Wow, I would have lost money on that. But you know what it figures? Because Hollywood, why would they spend all that money?
I wouldn't have answered that question. I would have been like, sorry.
I blame Nick.
It was filmed in the desert in Arizona and Morocco.
And Morocco? Really?
Arizona and Morocco.
That's interesting. Yeah, Morocco's far from Arizona.
You'd have thought they'd just pick one desert. I'm sure that most deserts are the same. Isn't it?
Interesting.
How about this one? Was Total Recall all a dream or was it real?
Dream.
But yeah.
Oh, wait, can't this be the same?
Yeah, that's a weird question.
It's weird. They are totally random questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, unfortunately, we are running out of time. Of course, Kurt, we'd love to have you on again, speak about your stories sometime in the future. I'm sure Nick and Adam have plenty more to ask.
We should do when we actually.
Yeah, we will read the books. I will be buying them soon, definitely. I've got plenty on my list now after the previous shows that I've got live, so that's where all my money's going.
Nick and myself will read them to you guys if you want.
Yeah, there we go. Shall we go to sleep at night? Well, maybe the opposite. We'll go to sleep. Thank you so much for coming on. Adam, pleasure again. Nick, again, it's your birthday, mate. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Scaredy Cat, I'll speak to you Sunday night.
Curtis Tuckfield.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
And obviously, Joe and Rick watching after your work all night. But yeah, take it easy, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe, and obviously,
Stay spooky.
See you later, guys.
Yeah.